What's up, everyone? Do you want to get better than a 90% on your ICDC cluster exam this year? It's not impossible if you know how to study and prepare from states to ICDC. Welcome back to the Bowtie Goat YouTube channel, where if you try hard enough, you can be the next DECA Goat. Let's dig in to figure out how to master that ICDC cluster exam. So we're clear, a 90% or better is possible on the ICDC cluster exam. Of the nearly 150 students who I've had to go to ICDC and take cluster exams, 11 of them scored a 90 or higher, the best getting a 94 and a 95% on these exams. It's very possible, you just need to know how to practice. So what does that 90 really get you? Of my students who have gotten 90% or better on their cluster exams, over half of them make the ICDC stage as a top 10 in the world finalist. Many crack the top 3. Many competitors come into ICDC going through the same basic practice of how to take cluster exams. Take all the tests you can find, examine the answer key, and make those flashcards and study. All those tips were good enough to get you to where you are, but are not good enough to get you to the ICDC stage. You can take exam after exam after exam question, and a lot of you are getting 80% or better. And it takes you roughly an hour to crush through an exam and think about those mistakes. But what you're doing then is you're spending 80% of your time on stuff you already do know, and 20% of the time, or roughly 12 minutes of that hour, on stuff you don't know. That's inefficient practice. That practice isn't going to get you to the ICDC stage. What you need to be doing is, if you're spending an hour of practice should correlate directly to the things that you need help with. So let's dig into what these tips are. Hear me out. The setup here really takes some time. I want you to go find all of your old cluster exams, or hopefully find some of your old cluster exam results. Because what I want you to do is figure out what questions you got wrong on your old cluster exams. And then I want you to go to the back where the answer key is. You know, this stuff where you only look at the letters and you only think about whether you got it right or wrong. And I want you to find the 2-letter code and the 3-digit number that follows that 2-letter code. And I want you to write that down for every single question you got wrong. Now, let's say you get 20 questions wrong on an exam, and you found 5 exams you take. That means you have about 100 of these source codes. Rather than just writing them in a notebook, I would put them into some sort of spreadsheet so it's a little bit easier to sort. So just fire through them, type them into the column in the spreadsheet. You can just do the 2-letter code colon the 3-digit number. Once you have all that done, sort that column alphabetically so you have all of the codes lining up in order. When you do this, you will notice you're actually accomplishing 2 things. First, you are grouping all the questions you've missed on the exams. I did this recently for a student as an example of how to study, and you can see on the screen his results. Pause for a second. These things are instructional areas? Yeah, they are, and once you sort by instructional area, something new comes about. If you're a role play competitor, this also helps you understand which instructional areas you know the least. So if you're preparing for your role play and thinking about the performance indicators that you need to study the ones that you're getting wrong on your cluster exams. So there's a lot of setup here, and I told you it was going to take a little bit of work, but now we're ready to unlock some magic. Let's start with one of the very first things that you can do. Let's go back to that tab where we have all of the different codes written out. Are there any codes that show up more than once? Not like the 2-letter code, but the 2-letter code and the 3-digit code. Are there any codes that show up more than once? So again, if there's a specific performance indicator that you know you've missed, in my student's case, it's PD302. If you've missed that specific performance indicator, then what you ought to do is go back to the test, figure out what the website or the source was for that research or for that question, and make that part of your study materials. DECA often reuses their source material to write new questions, but if they're pulling from the same source and you know what the source is, you are so many steps ahead of them. This is one example of how, if I'm going to spend an hour studying, I would spend an hour studying like this, rather than just taking test after test after test. Because now you're locked in on the thing that they're likely to ask you at ICDC that you've already missed on previous tests. That alone should help you immensely perfect your ICDC performance. But let's say you're not really missing any one particular performance indicator. Let's zoom back out a little bit and look at the instructional area and have a study approach for that. My student is in the entrepreneurship career cluster. He struggles in particular with a handful of categories. I've highlighted some on the screen, and one of them is promotion. If he's looking for practice in the promotion area, he can look for other DECA tests that have a whole lot of these questions. Here's where knowing the exam blueprint really helps. So in his career cluster for the ICDC exam, he's going to have 8 questions on promotion. If he really wants to study the promotion questions, what he can do is use the exam blueprint and look for another category, look for another career cluster that has a ton of promotion questions. Because not only does DECA often use the same source for their questions, they often ask questions in the similar, or in some cases exactly the same way. So I would say to my student, if you're looking for promotion, then go over to the marketing test. Find as many marketing tests as you can. Go back to that marketing test answer key, find the questions that align with promotion, and look only at the promotion questions on that test. Once again, think about what you're doing. Instead of studying for an hour, taking all of the test questions in one test in 1 hour, now you're identifying your specific need, finding what would seem weird, a different test, and studying those test questions for the instructional area that you need, and focusing your practice just on the things that you commonly miss. This also will boost your test score by a couple of points at the ICDC exam and will make your practice much more efficient. So far, we looked at 2 specific tools. One is looking at the sources of the questions you miss a lot. The second is exploring the instructional areas from the questions you're missing and finding other tests that help you with those instructional areas. Those are great forms of practice. You can do another thing to practice, and it's something you're probably already doing for other things. You just don't know how it helps you with DECA. I'm talking about artificial intelligence. You can get your favorite AI tool to spit at you a lot of DECA questions. You just have to prompt it in the right way to make it super specific for the help that you're looking for. So let's look at the prompt on the screen. If you're really specific with your AI favorite tool, you're going to get some amazingly helpful results. Let's use the prompt on the screen. And notice I've made this pretty darn specific. The more specific you are with your AI buddy, the better. You can take that same prompt and make it even more specific. If you find that you're missing the same sort of specific performance indicators from your test, you can tell your AI super tool to focus on that particular performance indicator and do the same sort of thing, and it's going to give you tons of questions kind of in increasing order of strength to help you get better at your cluster exams. So full teacher disclaimer here, AI is not always perfect, so you have to use a little bit of brain power to understand whether the things being asked of you is right. But please, if you're at this point of practice, you probably know whether the AI is probably right or not, but use this as a tool to help you think of more things. Oh, and a word about that AI tip. Consider making a new account for this AI process. Make this your DECA Study Buddy account, because most of our AI search engines, our AI companions now, will get specific and help you in the ways that you know you need the help. So take a different email account that you haven't used for AI before, set it up as specifically your DECA help. And over the next few weeks, as you prepare for ICDC, only use that email address and that AI for DECA-specific questions and answers. And that AI buddy of yours is going to get better at helping you get better at DECA. If you know what you're getting wrong in your cluster exams and can use these tips to help you get better, there is no doubt in my mind you can boost your score by at least 10 points. There is no doubt in my mind that time and effort you put in is going to get you to a 90%, and that 90% or better correlates so strongly to DECA success. I can't wait to see you all at ICDC this year. I'm so excited to cheer for you from the side of the stage. Best of luck, everybody, on your DECA success journey.